Hi, wrestling fans. This is Mr. Number One George South, and you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Once again, Live in Color, Wolfie D. You know who I am, I think. And if you don't by this point, I don't know what to tell you. And then I got Jimmy across the street over here with me. If you don't know him by now, I'm not sure what to tell you either. You're a first-time listener and somebody is holding a gun to your head and making you listen, or maybe somebody that you like is going to be on the show today. And who doesn't like George South, Jimmy?
Seriously, who does not like George South? Honestly, I don't get it. He even talks about people that I didn't think really had a great personality liking him. So, I mean, George, dude, is just a great wrestler and just a legend. And I mean, we're like a Barry Horowitz down now. We've had Reno, George South, you know, Tony Falk. We got a few guys of the enhancement guys, but we got Barry Horowitz up. But anyway, got to get him soon. But yeah, George South, man. Stories for days, so many opportunity. I honestly just can't wait to talk to him. There's a story about, well, I'll let him tell it, but there's an excellent story about hair versus hair matches that I cannot wait for him to tell. And he's great.
So I'll be listening for that one when you ask it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this is cool that we got him on here. Like you said, what a great guy, a man of God, very, very big into his faith, and we appreciate that. And I will watch my mouth. Anybody that listens to this show frequently knows I can have a potty mouth. So George, I'm gonna try my best to watch my mouth.
You know what's funny is my brother even said that he's gonna let my niece and nephew listen to the show. I said it'll be the first time ever. So hey Paisley, hey Paxton. But anyway, George is great. You're right. So strong in his faith. You know, so just absolutely, he's like one of a kind. Yeah. They really don't make anybody like him.
It says a lot about the boys. You think, you go to the gimmick table and you're out there to hustle everybody and make some money when, of course he's doing that as well. But as many people know, George brings Bibles that he gets from the Goodwill that people have donated or whatever. And he hands out Bibles at the matches. He's not just concerned about making his gimmick money. He's spreading the word of his Lord and Savior. So you got to say a lot about that. You know what I mean?
It does, man. It really does. And, I'm just stoked to be able to talk to him. So glad we hooked that up. Got to give a quick shout out to Insane Shane Martin. He helped bridge the gap that we were needing there. Thank you, Shane, for that. We got an action figure of George South coming out soon. Not sure on the date, probably be a little bit down the line, but we definitely wanted to bring George on and talk a little bit about that, but more about everything he's done. One thing we're passing up here, and we want to get on with the show, so I'm not going to waste too much time, but we just had our 100th episode. Mm-hmm. So, receiving great reviews, by the way. I do want to update one more thing. Our 99th episode guest, Kevin Lawler, by this airing, will be number 3 all time on the list. Amazing. So it really is the Dundees versus the Lawler now. So
that's hilarious, isn't it? And switch gears, give you some props here. Give me back my pro wrestling seems to be doing pretty good. I know you've been focusing a lot. We had the Wild Boys on here, and I know you've been focusing a lot on the 90s Tennessee outlaw scene and bringing a lot of those guys in, man. And I know you've had some good numbers with them, and now the door's getting beat down, people wanting to come on. So that's good, man, that your other show is doing very well too.
Oh, thanks for the plug, Wolfie D. That means a lot, brother. Yeah, it's doing great, man. We just kind of, we were trying to, like so many podcasts that are kind of like so many podcasts of that level kind of sometimes are either focus so much on new stuff or they focus, on a specific topic all the time. And I just thought, man, why not let these guys talk? And then had Jeff Daniels on, great response to that. Shane Morton came on, blew the doors off, Hot Rod Biggs. So, I mean, we've had some great guys, just had Kroll. We've got Quentin Charisma just dropped last week. And then we got your buddy Rick Reynolds coming up. So,
yeah. That's good, man.
Fun times. Yeah.
He'll knock me to death. That'll be a good show for you.
No.
Let's get George South on here and talk to George, man.
More importantly, let's get George. We'll be right back after these messages.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Hey folks, to get your official Live It in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
All right, folks, we're back, and as promised, what an incredible guest we have today. Mr. George South is on here with us. We've been trying to get this one done for a while, and we finally got the planning. We've talked about all that on here before about how it's tough sometimes to get me and Jimmy on the right time schedule, and then the guest, and we finally got George South on here. George, how are you doing today, sir?
Man, Wolfie, thank you so much. You and Jimmy, I'm doing so great. I've been very excited this weekend to get it out of the way so we could do this thing. So, buddy, I'm ready. Wolfie, people laugh at me, buddy, because I go, I'm so old school. I actually go to a library and get on their computer. Like, I don't even own a TV. I don't want one.
Love it.
I don't even want one. So, 5 minutes on a computer this morning, some old guy I've never met, he calls me old. Okay. Now, buddy, listen. You can smack me. You can take my biscuit away, but brother, when you call me old, especially when I've never met you,
right?
So I let loose on him this morning. Okay, so I'm gonna calm down before we do this. And I'm thinking, brother, I know I'm old, but I'm having the greatest time of my life. So just shut up. You
are. Yeah, you are.
Man,
but anyway, I think this happened, buddy. So I let him, everybody says, well, you're a good Christian man. You need to turn the other cheek. I said, no, I'm not. Wolfie, I ain't turning no other cheek, buddy. I'm okay. Anyway, he fired me up already, man.
Yeah. So I think this was the first time I ever met you. Obviously, as a kid growing up, I remember, TBS and seeing you on there.
Right.
And I knew you was a really good wrestler. I knew that just as a young kid. I could always, I want to say kind of like I was a smart mark before it was a thing.
Right.
So I kind of knew that you were really good. But I'm gonna tell you. It was at Maryville, Tennessee, and it was for Dutch Mantell's granddaughter. It was a benefit show, and you were on that, and I was on that. And I remember watching. I think me and Tom Pritchard were standing at the back there, and the crowd. From what I remember, a benefit crowd can be kind of, not as uppity as the regular wrestling crowd, and not as loud. But I'm gonna tell you something, man. When I watched you go out there, and Jimmy, I'm telling you this too. I might have told you this story, but George went out there, and I forgot who you worked, but you went out there and milked, taking off your jacket for about 15 minutes, and those people were going crazy, man. And that's when I looked at Tom and I said, man, he's good.
Oh, I appreciate that. I tell you, I learned that years ago from them old heels, and people think just because the bell hadn't rung don't mean that we're not working.
Right.
Well, see, that people don't understand it. They think, well, man, he's been out here 30 minutes and I want to kill him, but they hadn't even rung the bell. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's exactly right. And so I love nights like that. I remember that so much because Dirty White Boy was there too, and it may have been who I was working, and he wanted to be the heel, me be the babyface, but I went out there and changed it like real quick, like right in the ring, and he still laughed. He said, "Wait a minute." I said, No, I'm gonna get these people to hate me real quick. And you know the opposite of that, hey Jimmy, the opposite is if they tell me to leave my jacket on, I take it off.
Right, of course. Yeah.
And then that makes them mad.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I said, hey, I got this figured out.
That kind of stuff is like a lost art in the wrestling business, you know.
And you know, Wolfie, I know you've had this happen.
Man.
I've had my backs turned while I'm working the jacket, and I've had some young baby face come over and start hitting me in the back of the head,
Gosh.
because they're tired of it.
Right.
I said, no, get off of me.
Yeah.
You got to smarten them up too. I said, you're the Lone Ranger. You never hit nobody from behind. Okay. So goodness gracious.
But yeah, that was the first time I think I met
Thank you.
And that was just, for me, it was just memorable just because I knew in my head, at that point in my career that, man, that's a heck of a worker right there. They can sit there and do that with that type of crowd that, it seemed like throughout the night they were just kind of dead, but you brought them up by not taking your jacket off. And I remember. That's right,
buddy. And it's funny because I'll have fans wanting to kill me. I've never cussed them. I never threatened them. I can just do something with that jacket and they'll want to kill me. And I just, all those years of just watching, these old heels like Blackjack Mulligan and all those guys, man, how they, I remember Johnny Valentine would just look at people and he wouldn't say a word. He would just look up in the crowd and people would throw something at him.
Who would you say were your major influences on, like just the type of wrestler you are?
Well, guys, of course, growing up here around the, Mid-Atlantic area, and, as a kid, I just happened to turn on the television, Wolfie, at 10 years old, and I saw Wahoo McDaniels and Paul Jones against the Anderson brothers.
Wow.
And, man, I'd never seen wrestling in my life. It used to come on, Channel 3 here in Charlotte every Saturday, and, man, I got hooked. Yeah. And I tell you, I didn't know you could go to the live matches. I just saw something that was just the greatest thing I ever seen in my life. And then here in Charlotte, you could go every Monday night and see these guys live. And man, I remember one time I didn't even have a lawnmower, but I would go borrow a mower and go cut these folks' yard to get money to buy my wrestling ticket.
That's awesome.
And guys, I was such a big mark. I remember the first match I ever went to, I had the ticket in my hand. And fans won't remember this, but you used to carry a ticket in, and the old lady would take it and tear it in half. And I remember, I stood there at that little turntable thing for like 30 minutes arguing with this old lady because she's trying to take my ticket. And I'm thinking, hey, honey, wait a minute. I just cut 4 yards. And I ain't even seen Wahoo McDaniels yet. You ain't taking my ticket. So I got arrested at 10 years old because I thought, you're taking my ticket. So, we're going to give it back. But then, to get to know Paul Jones, who he just recently passed away a couple years ago, but he was my favorite, like as a young man. And then I got to know him and to know Wahoo. And what did it for me, guys, it sounds crazy, is here's how our business has changed. The TV shows used to give you an address where you could write your favorite wrestler. And so I did. I just simply sit down, 10, 11 years old. I wrote Paul Jones a letter, how much I loved him and wished I could be a wrestler. And I'm not making this up, guys. About 3 weeks later, he wrote me back.
Really?
I mean, it wasn't one of his people, that just stamped a picture. He sent me a black and white 8x10 autograph. And I still have it to this day, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Man, and I just thought, man, if this man, you realize they were human. Right. I mean, to me, they were superheroes, but these wrestlers, if he took time, and at that time, man, he was working Florida, he was working Texas, he was all over the place, but he took time to write me a letter. And I thought, man, if I wasn't in love with pro wrestling, then, buddy, by then, and I'll tell you what's funny is, like right now, I don't even know where my kids are. right? But I know what that autographed picture of Paul Jones is, Wolfie. I'll tell you that. I can't even find my car keys, but brother, I know where I'll tell you where that picture is. So, man, I just fell in love with those guys. You know, you hear guys say that they help setting a ring up and, you know, selling popcorn. Well, anything that I could do to be around pro wrestling at a young age, I did it and loved every minute of it.
How old were you when you started training?
Well, you know, of course, back then, Wolfie, there was no wrestling schools. You know, now everybody's got a ring. I mean, here in the Carolinas, there's people got them set up in their backyards, for heaven's sake. And,
amen.
You know, you know, Jimmy, you can buy them on the internet, but of course, back in the day, the biggest difference is back in the day, the old timers, they didn't want you in this business.
Right.
Like they felt like, and you know, this will be that you're going to take my spot or my job. So anything they could do to change your mind, they would do it.
Yeah.
And I, if you can believe this, I was 17 years old, getting ready to turn 18. I was working at a little old warehouse, just an old cotton mill warehouse, and I opened up the newspaper, and it just had like a little ad, and it just said, "Do you want to be a pro wrestler?" And I thought, you got to be kidding me. Man, I thought it was going to be hard. So stupid me on the ride down to this old warehouse. And I joked with people, I said, it looked like a building out of an old Scooby-Doo cartoon. I mean, the windows were broke out of it. And the doors were hanging on the hinges. And man, I just walked in. Yeah. And of course, there was an old ring. And there was this real old timer named Rusty Roberts. He lives up there in Tennessee now, but it was him and a lady, an older lady wrestler, and this Samoan. And when I walked in, they just stopped and they said, "Can we help you?" And, you know, here's this stupid, 17-year-old kid. I said, "Well, I want to do this." And they said, "Well, okay." And then I thought, man, this is like the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. So stupid me stepped in this ring, and for the next 2 hours, they about killed me.
Oh.
I mean, buddy, I remember they knocked one of my teeth out. They broke my nose. They tore my clothes off of me. And I mean, because like I said, the object was, oh yeah, you may want to do this now, but when we get done with you, you're not going to want to do this.
Right.
And believe it or not, for about 2 hours, I mean, they did stuff to me that's probably illegal. I mean, they beat me to death. And then they threw me out of the ring, and I crawled. Believe it or not, I crawled out that front door. And I said, I hate pro wrestling. I will never go back. And for some reason, the next day, I went back.
Yeah.
And I walked in. I mean, I can hear it like it was yesterday. Rusty Roberts, he said, "You're either the dumbest person that we've ever met in our life, or you must really want to do this." And, but that started it. And of course, now you can't beat somebody up like that, but buddy, and I don't know why I went back, but buddy, I've been going back ever since, and just fell in love with it. And I think they realized, man, this young kid is nuts, or he must really, really want to love this, and do this. And that was it. I mean, and so now, like when I tell a young kid, come and help me set the ring up, and they give me some stupid excuse, I just laugh at them. Yeah, because they don't have a clue. You know, Wolfie, I know you do too. Sometimes I still laugh when I hear that guys are being paid to train. And I know our business has changed, but it makes my head hurt that there's actually guys, and I know that's how they do it now, but I said, what do you mean?
Let me tell you, George, when this was probably around 2000 or something, I had been in the business right at 10 years, and I was working for Cornette in Louisville for the OVW. And that's about the time when Cena and Orton and Batista and all those guys were up there. And let me tell you, I was taking a Greyhound bus from Nashville to Louisville every Wednesday to get a very small payoff. Okay. And I stayed with Cornette. I mean, he took care of that for me. But, then my wife would drive up the next day and come get me. And then I'm finding out, you got these dudes like Batista, he was, and he was terrible when he first started. I mean, I guess we all were, but and I find out, man, these guys got apartments and New York's paying them, and this ain't right. And they really
no, it's not.
Didn't care too much. It wasn't like for love of the game for them, like it was for me and you. And we wanted to do it regardless of what we were getting paid.
That's right.
We just wanted to do what we loved. So
yes,
I totally get that.
Yes, sir. Wahoo told me one time when I first started, he said, and I'm so thankful for those old guys that just, told me to shut up and just listen. And I remember Wahoo said, your first 10 years, don't even worry about money. I mean, just learn this business. And then eventually you'll be able to name your price. You'll be able to talk money. But, and I've just always kind of, stuck to that now. And I tell you, my kids say I would probably do it for free, but no, I just love being around it. I love, training the young guys, the ones that will listen. And, I've got a picture, Wolfie, hanging up in my house. And it just happened by accident. One night at my wrestling school, I had Ric Flair's son, Ricky Steamboat's son, Bobby Eaton's son, all in the ring at the same time. And, they always came in and that night someone just snapped a picture of that. And it just, at that moment, I still look at it sometimes. And I say that not to brag, but when Ric Flair and Steamboat and Bobby Eaton, when they bring their kids to you and they say, can you train my son? But you better know what the heck you're talking about.
Yeah.
You better have kind of an ideal and there's you can't put a price tag, on stuff like that. And man, I tell you that was probably one of, to this day, still some of the greatest compliments is when they trust me, with their own son. I mean, I was able to train Tessa Blanchard, Tully. It's so funny what fans think just because your dad wrestled that you're going to be the greatest. And I just think it's hard. I think there's so much pressure because in my day, Wolfie, we would put a mask on a guy's son and kind of kayfabe who he was for a while, and let him learn and have fun.
Right.
But they don't, that's not even heard of nowadays, but it's just so much pressure. I remember one night me and Ric Flair's son, Reed, was doing an autograph signing. And what a great kid he was. But so we're sitting there signing autographs, and the first 15 people that came up, they all said, how's your dad doing? How's your dad doing? How's your dad doing? So about the 15th one, I stopped and stood up, and I said, folks, listen, this is Reed Flair. Okay, if y'all want to ask about his dad, wait till his dad comes. But, how about asking how Reed's doing, for heaven's sake?
Yeah.
I was thinking, my gosh, folks, come on. And first time me and I'll shut up in a minute. First time me and Tessa Blanchard, we did a podcast together. First time. First question the guy asked was, how's Tully doing? And Wolfie, I shut that down. I said, wait a second. Now, this is Tessa. Okay, her dad will be on later, but right now, why don't you ask Tessa how she's doing?
Right.
So it's like automatically you got to give these young guys and young girls a chance to be them.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always tried to have their back. I mean, late at night when you're in there bumping them, that ring don't care that your dad's Tully Blanchard.
Right.
That ring don't care that your dad's Ricky Steamboat. When you're the one in there falling. So just an amazing story. Time.
That is.
And man, you said Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Bobby Eaton, man. Talk about, man, you got to work with some of the greatest wrestlers in the wrestling business ever. What's that like, man? I've got to work with some really good dudes too, but your resume speaks volumes over mine as far as the people that you've been in the ring with, man. Talk about Flair. So, what's it like? I knew Bobby very well, but I never got to work him. I was a producer and a talent on Ric Flair's last match. I've never worked him. At Ricky Steamboat, I met him like once. These are guys that when I was a kid was what I was watching, So talk about those guys and just how talented they are.
Well, what was so amazing back then when I first started, there was no internet, there was no, YouTube or anything. It was just an old-fashioned wrestling magazine. And, I collected them like everybody did. Man, I used to love to get them and read about some of these guys. So the first TV that I ever done in my life was Georgia Championship Wrestling in Atlanta, way before the Superstation. It's when Ole had it. And I walked in this dressing room, and I look over there, and there's like Ric Flair, there's Ox Baker, there's Jerry Lawler, for heaven's sake. It's all these guys that I read about in a magazine.
Yeah.
And so I thought, Lord, I'm in heaven right now. Are you kidding me? And I remember, Wolfie, the first match I ever wrestled on television was with Jimmy Valiant and Jerry Lawler. And I'll tell you what's funny, Jimmy, I knew who these guys were, but I mean, all of a sudden I'm in the ring with them.
Yeah.
And back then you didn't dress with the top guys. Wolfie. Right. We were in like a little old broom closet at Techwood Drive. And I knew who Lawler and them were, but you didn't even see them till the bell was getting ready to ring.
Yeah.
And so Lawler had told referee Ron West that the finish was going to be his fist drops. Well, I knew what the fist drop was. So we get out there and we have the little match or whatever. Well, Lawler picks him up for the pile driver, which is already, still one of his finishes. Yeah. Well, all I know is a fist drop. And so he gives me this big pile driver and all that. Well, guess what I did? This dumb kid kicked out.
I do that.
I mean, I'm probably the only guy in the world that lived to tell about it, but I kicked out of Lawler's finish. And man, I get in the back and Ole is cussing me like a sailor. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, it's my first day. Like I'm going to get fired, and I didn't even have a job to get fired. But anyway, and I remember Ole cussing me, and Lawler stepped in and said, "No, Ole, it was my fault. I did tell the kid the fist drop." So every year after that, every time Ole had seen me, he said, "I killed the business." He said, "Lawler has beat Andre, Harley Race, and Ric Flair, but you kicked out." So, oh my gosh! So I knew then I got to get this right, but I would just get in my car, 4 a.m. on Saturday mornings. I'd drive down there to Georgia Championship Wrestling, Techwood Drive. Tommy Rich was the hottest baby face that you could ever imagine. And it was right before cable took off. And so J.J. Dillon came in, and they found out that I lived in Charlotte, if you can believe it. And they said, "Wow, you mean you're driving down here every weekend?" I said, "Yes." And you know what was so cool, being a big mark as I was, is we would take the matches at like 8:05 in the morning, and they would be live that night. Remember, right after a Braves game, and so I would rush back home so I could sit there in front of the television and watch my match. Now that's what a mark. But JJ says, "Hey, when work opens up, in the Carolinas or somewhere else, we will." We'll get in touch with you. And then that's just simply how it happened. I mean, guys, I learned to keep my mouth shut because, Wolfie, I saw so many young guys opening their mouth and saying stupid things. And I thought, well, I may mess up in the ring, but I'm not going to mess up in the dressing room. I'm not going to, I knew I wasn't going to say nothing stupid. I saw two guys one time, it was later on, they wrestled Mike Rotundo and Rick Steiner for WCW. And those two guys in the back, they were pretty jacked up, and I could hear them talking that they thought in their mind that they were going over. Wolfie, if you can't believe this, Jimmy, I mean, so, you get a brain freeze, and it's going to be against these two guys, Rotundo and Rich Steiner, and they literally went out there. And them idiots thought that they were going to win this, going to go over. And of course, Rotundo and them changed that real quick. And when we came back to the dressing room, I wished I'd have had a camera with me. Rick and Mike Rotundo stuffed. You know how in a cartoon you see a guy get stuffed in a trash can? I mean, like his legs and his head both were sticking out of this trash can. You're thinking, how did that guy's body bend like that? Well, Rotundo and Rick Steiner did that to both those guys. I mean, in the dressing room for all the boys, crammed them in a trash can. And I remember Rotundo said something like, "Yeah, y'all are going over now, right?" But, you think, okay, how did these two idiots, who would think that? But they did, but, and they never was invited back. You know what I joke with? early on in my career, I lost 1, 2, 3 to the Mulkey brothers and also the Ding Dongs.
Yes.
Well, you remember the Ding Dongs?
Yes,
Listen, hey guys, when you lose to both of them early in your career, you can only go up. You know what? I mean, how could I tell guys now? You can't hurt me.
Right.
Man, I lost to the Mulkeys and I lost to the Ding Dongs. Hey, and in Fayetteville, North Carolina, for the big Great American, I think it was the Bash or whatever Dusty called it. It was me and Cougar J against the Ding Dongs. It was their big debut.
Oh,
and I remember we're in the back, and Cougar J's mad because he can't believe that we're losing to the Ding Dongs.
Right.
And I remember I said, brother, shut up. I said, we're going to make $400. Are you kidding? And Wolfie, they pinned me. So what the heck you complaining about?
Right,
you know?
right.
So I go out with the Ding Dongs, and which was a fiasco. Those were great kids. They were two of Jody Hamilton's guys. But you think they could have put the Midnight Express in Bales and it wouldn't have worked. I mean, those poor kids, they didn't have a chance from the beginning. And listen, we were hardcore before hardcore was hardcore, because in that match, all their stupid bales fell off of their gear. So Wolfie, every time they slammed me, I was landing on these stupid metal bales.
Oh, man.
So it never took off. Those young boys, you know, I don't know whatever happened to them. And that was one of Jim Hurd. It was all Jim Hurd. You remember Jim Hurd that came in? You know, he was the pizza owner that came into WCW and had some crazy ideas. But you know what? I may be the only guy that loved Jim Hurd. And I'll tell you why. You know what his first business, his first line of business was? He decided to give all of us underneath guys an extra $100 for driving.
Man.
Now, that don't seem like much to fans nowadays, but I'll tell you a funny story. Well, all of us used to, you know, we'd ride together. You know that. We'd put 13 guys in a little car. and then when Jim Hurd started paying everybody $100, we all started driving.
Yeah.
And I remember one time Ole came in from the parking lot in Atlanta, and he come over and he said, George South, he said, I got a question. He said, I just came through the parking lot, and there's like 30 cars from North Carolina. He said, you know anything about that? I said, I ain't got a clue what you're talking about. It's because we all drove. We were all wanting that $100 trans that Jim Hurd. So man, and of course he didn't last long either, but you know, he brought in the Van Hammers and all them. But you know, and I get sidetracked here. I get so excited. But you know, the greatest thing about Bobby Eaton, you know what he did to me one time? We were just in a ring before TV. And this is how good Bobby Eaton is. And he's the only one I completely trusted. I mean, you could lay there with an egg on your forehead and let him do the Alabama Jam, and he would crack that egg and not hurt you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anybody that was that good. So recently I don't think it was Dr. Tom, but somebody posted a video or short clip on the internet about complete trust in professional wrestling. And it just happened to be me in there with the Midnight Express. And Stan Lane grabbed me in a Boston Crab, and he turned me over on my stomach. And Bobby Eaton went to the top and did that big famous high knee off the top onto the back of my head with me laying on my stomach.
Right.
And complete trust.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, because he could have went either way. And really, you know, later in Bobby's career, he was doing a few shows, and me and him was in the dressing room, and this promoter come over and they said, Bobby, would you do the Alabama Jam tonight? And of course, Bobby said yes, but I stood up, Wolfie, and I said, no, sir. I said, he's not. He doesn't have to do the Alabama Jam anymore.
Yeah.
And Bobby said, no, George, I don't mind. I said, no, Bobby, I ain't letting you. And he could have done it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Wolfie. But I told this promoter, I said, listen, you get up there and do the Alabama Jam, because Bobby ain't going to.
Right.
And I just felt like, you know, Bobby didn't at that point in his career, and later on, he didn't have to climb that. If you don't know Bobby Eaton by then I can't help you, you know? And later he thanked me, Wolfie, for that. but he didn't have to do that Alabama Jam. You know,
what a great individual he was. I mean, people talk about it all the time, but unless you really knew him, man, you just don't know how good he was. And to the kids, man, there was a time where me, Jamie, Gypsy Joe, Bobby, and Chris Michaels. I think we all lived in the same apartment complex, and we'd go to the pool every day. And Bobby, and this is when Bobby and Donna were separated for a little while,
right?
And so he was living in Nashville with all of us. And man, I can't tell you how good he was to all of our kids. And hey, hey, darling, that's what he'd say to my little girl. And man, he
sure did.
The greatest dude.
Dusty used to get mad at him because him and Dennis or him and Randy Rose or whoever, they would go out there with me and maybe Mike Jackson or me and Rocky King, and they would give us 95% of the match.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have thought we were the Midnight Express. I was doing moves I still didn't know how to do, and can't do them today. But they were so good, and I can remember coming back and they would sneak the win out at the last minute, but we would come back and Dusty would go nuts, But Bobby's concept was he felt like it meant something because they beat somebody. But
exactly.
Man,
I always heard that breaking in too. It's like the squash matches were terrible to me because I mean, who'd you beat?
That's right. See, Flair was that way. The only reason, what's amazing is 35 years ago was the last time I really wrestled Ric Flair, and wrestling fans still come up to me to this day and say, man, I was just back home and I was watching that match with you and Rick, and they always say, well, I thought you was going to win. I said, well, I thought I was too. But for them to hang on to that all of these years, and that was all Rick. Yeah. See, the funny thing is Rick used to love, especially in Atlanta, he always had to catch a plane because he was always double booked, NWA champ, and he always came out in these nice suits. Well, he would hate to wrestle on TV because he'd have to get sweaty and shower quick and then go jump on a plane. And so he just loved to do interviews. Well, every now and then Dusty would have him work on TV just to, I think, show Rick that, hey, you got to listen to me. and so that one particular Saturday in Atlanta, Techwood Drive, he told Rick he was going to have to work. And Rick said, well, you give me George South. And I didn't know this. I was like in that broom closet.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I had a TV match, but, all of a sudden you go to the ring and then all of a sudden here comes Nature Boy Ric Flair with that NWA pounds of 10 gold. A pound, and you think, Lord, I'm fixing to have a heart attack. Are you kidding me? This is like Tom Brady, all right, wanting to throw a ball to me.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a chance to talk, but I remember as the ref was kind of searching us, I heard Rick say, ask Ricky Steamboat, is he ready? Now, that's when I about peed my pants, Wolfie, okay? So everybody knows how famous him and Steamboat was.
Oh, yeah.
And, brother, when that bell rung, Flair at that time was in the greatest shape of his life. I remember Jackie Crockett, the cameraman, he smartened us up that we were going to a commercial break. And we'd already went like 6 minutes on television. So I hear Jackie Crockett, and I'm thinking, thank you, Lord. Maybe we'll go into a commercial break and Rick will grab a hold.
Yeah.
Let me rest. I'm blowed up. Well, man, we went to a commercial break, and I think Rick stepped it up a notch. Brother, and I was hanging on for dear life. And, I mean, it was unbelievable. And so we did probably 12, 13 minutes on television. And you would have thought, if you watched that, of course, there were many other matches, but, man, to this day, people still come up. I just had a young man this past weekend. He said that his dad had passed away, Wolfie, last year, but he remembered sitting on his dad's lap watching my match with Ric Flair.
Wow.
Now, buddy, I don't care who you are, man. That just gets at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
To be a part of someone's life. And I see Rick nowadays, he still calls me Steamboat because he knows how blowed up I was. Buddy, they rolled me out of that ring and I didn't care. I thought I died.
Yeah.
But for some reason after that, Rick, he would always ask for me, and it got to where, especially, even in WCW, guys, they would ask for me.
Yeah.
And I had so many guys. WCW used to do a thing where they would do a dark match, which meant not really they were looking at any talent. They just had to change the old TV tapes over, like, from one reel to the other. And they just didn't want the fans to sit there.
Right.
So they brought in so many guys, tried to give them a job. And, Adrian Adonis, who I always loved, I saw him walk in. This is how cold our business can get. Yeah. I watched Adrian Adonis walk in the back of the dressing room at Techwood Drive and talk to Dusty about a job. Now, probably the year before, he was at WrestleMania.
Right.
But now he was out of a job, and he walked right in, and Dusty said, "Nope, I'm not hiring." So I watched Adrian Adonis in front of all the boys. Dusty wasn't rude about it. He just said, "I'm not hiring." Wow. And so I just watched. I wish fans nowadays that think this is so easy and you owe me something and I'm entitled to this. I wish they would have been sitting beside me when here's Adrian Adonis, one of the greatest in the world.
Yeah.
Just had to turn around and walk back out that door.
Wow.
And let people see that. You think you can do this stuff, man. Right. And so I sit in my corner. I remember one time Ole fired a bunch of guys and my name wasn't on the list. So Wolfie stupid me, I go up to Ole and I said, "Excuse me, Ole." I said, "My name wasn't on the list." And he said, "Well, you're not even important enough to fire."
Oh my gosh.
Jimmy, I said, "Dang, man." So I went back over and shut down. I said, sit down and shut up. But, I thought, hey, man, my name ain't on the list. Maybe I'm important. And he said, "No, listen, you're not even important enough to put on the list." I said, "Okay."
Well, Jimmy, I'm sure you got some good questions for George, don't you?
Well, okay. I've always said this on this show, 101 episodes in now, and I've always said I'm a Mid-Atlantic kid, and a lot of our listeners are Memphis fans, being PG-13, right. Wolfie D. We're a good Tennessee base, but coming with a Mid-Atlantic guest, I'm always excited to have you on. One of my favorite all-time stories that I've heard you tell, and we probably have a lot of up-and-coming wrestlers that listen, and some of the guys that are currently in the business listening, and tell them the art, because you were lucky enough to be working Crockett and WWF around the same time, so you could bounce back and forth. Tell these kids the art of the hair versus hair matches.
Oh my goodness. And you know what? Let me back up just a minute, Jimmy, and I'll tell y'all something. When I was 18 years old, a promoter in the Carolinas brought in Lou Thez.
Oh,
now you can believe this, not to make an appearance, but to wrestle. Now he was older in age, but this was still the man, still in great shape and still had that world belt. And so I got to wrestle Lou Thez at 18 years old.
Holy cow.
So listen to this, what I did, I told you I ain't too smart. It's a wonder I'm still alive. Okay. Yeah. I walked over in Lou Thez's dressing room, and I began to tell Lou Thez, I'm embarrassed now. I'm going to duck down in my car, okay? But I began telling Lou Thez what I was going to do in the match. And he stood up. I swear he had to be 10 foot tall. He stood up, and he said, "Kid, the first thing you're going to do is shut up." And I did, too. Let me tell you, I did.
Yeah.
And he said, "You're just going to listen." And so I said, "Yes, sir." And so we go out there. And now I could tell he could have broke me in half if he wanted to, and he was still snug, and you knew he was the man. But we had a decent little match, and I learned that day to just keep my mouth shut and listen. And so, and what was so famous about, I caught on quick. Like I had never been to WWF, Wolfie, but everybody, I don't care who you are, you wanted to go to WWF.
Yeah.
I mean. They were like the Super Bowl, and I've been everywhere else. And so Nelson Royal was great friends with Jay Strongbow. So Jay just simply said one day, "You got a couple of guys." Well, I knew I was going to WWF. Nelson was going to take me, send us. So I let my hair grow out, Jimmy. Now I look like Ted Nugent. I mean, way before Ted Nugent. I remember guys the boys in the dressing room used to say, "George, you need to cut that hair. I mean, it's looking, what are you going to do with that?" But I knew that at that time, Brutus the Barber Beefcake was breaking in up there. It was this big angle, and he was cutting guys' hair. And I'm thinking, if I go walking in WWF, I did this on my own. I'm kind of proud of myself. I said, if I go walking in WWF with this frizzy hair, looking like Ted Nugent. Now, who do you think Brutus is going to want to cut the hair? So,
exactly.
I mean, guys in the dressing room was telling. One time, Dutch Mantell was ribbing me, and he said, "George, you need to cut that hair." And I looked over at her. You know, Dutch is like the hairiest guy in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, Dutch, you're telling me to cut my hair? You know? So anyway, I just let it grow. I let it grow. I didn't cut it. And then I looked, man, it was like, it was worse than Gene Simmons. So I go WWF television. I didn't even know who I was going to work. And so I get there, we meet Strongbow, we sit down in the dressing room. Next thing I know, Strongbow comes. I'm in the dressing room with a bunch of young guys. And on the flight up, I remember young guys like Ricky Nelson and Tommy Angel. Some of those guys had beautiful heads of hair. And I can remember them saying, well, I hope they sure don't ask me to cut my hair. I sure don't I sure hope I don't get Brutus. But I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
Thinking, man, what a thrill of a lifetime. So it didn't take Jay Strongbow 2 seconds to walk in that dressing room and to see me sitting over there. And brother, I looked like Ted Nugent. I mean, it was it was just everywhere. And he said, come here, kid. He said, I want to introduce you to somebody. He takes me to Brutus, and Brutus grinned from ear to ear. Yeah. And he said, yeah, that's perfect. So the coolest thing about that story is Brutus asked me, he didn't just start cutting. He said, what, do you mind where I cut after the match?
What kind of style would you like, George?
Yeah. He said, you want us to wash it and dry first? And I said, brother, I don't care. I'm like on Monday Night Raw. Okay.
Right.
So, man, we go out there and he's strutting and cutting, and brother, he puts him to sleep. Next thing I know, he starts cutting, and I'm just living it up. I mean, I'm having the time of my life. Like, I want to tell all the boys in the dressing room that made fun of me, look at me now, right? So I get out of the ring, and they tell me, they said, George, if you don't mind, you can go sit over here, and the lady will be here in a minute to style your hair.
Yeah.
Now, this is when, Wolfie, I knew WWF is big time. Right. They got a full-time beautician that travels, right? I said, are you kidding me? I said, no, go over here. I go over there. She washes it. She dries it. She styles it. And listen to this. The best part is Jay Strongbow says, when you get your check in a couple of weeks, you're going to be happy. And I said, oh, gosh, I'm on Monday Night Raw. What do you mean I get paid? That's just an extra.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to give you $350 for the match, and then you're going to get an extra $400 for letting Brutus cut your hair.
Man,
and you got more for the haircut than you did the match.
I got more for the haircut than I did for the match. Okay. And so I kayfabed that for the next 2 months. And so boom, here comes this check. One shot. I made $750. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah.
And so every time, the next 6 times I go up there, Brutus cut my hair. Hey, and Jimmy, finally, Strongbow said, George, I hate to tell you this, but we just, we got to stop. He said, people are going to catch on. He said, every week, Brutus cuts your hair. And that's when I knew that WWF. Now I know why all the boys wanted to go to WWF.
Right.
Because it's just a different league.
Right.
And just the way they treated guys, like underneath guys.
Yeah.
And are you kidding me? And I was making, people still laugh at me when they come back. They'll come up to my table, my little gimmick table now to show and say, yeah, man, I saw Brutus cut your hair, man. You lost that match. I'm thinking, yeah, I sure did. But I won Monday when I went to the bank. Well, let me tell you.
Seriously, that's awesome.
So I learned then, sometimes what you see, Jake Roberts walked up to me and he said, hey, kid, he said, you afraid of snakes? And I said, well, I ain't never really been near them. He said, well, you're fixing to be. I said, oh my gosh. So he did, listen to this, well, he DDTs me, which was the finish of the ages back then.
Yeah.
People were chanting it. I mean, people were naming their kids DDT. It was over so much. And, brother, he DDT'd me, and I knew Damien was coming.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know, I'd always seen him take Damien out of the bag, this 20-foot snake, and lay it on you real easy. Well, I didn't know that Jake was going to change it up. So he threw the whole bag on me.
Oh.
Right? So I'm laying there with my eyes shut, and I said, screw this, brother. Wolfie, I woke right up. I killed the whole DDT finish, buddy. everybody says, "Oh, it's just a snake." Yeah, it's a 20-foot snake laying in a bag on my chest. And,
I'm not a fan of snakes myself, and I've often thought that if I would have ever had to have worked him back then, I don't know what I would have done. I really don't, because I hate snakes with a passion.
Jake said, "Yeah, you killed my finish." Said, "I beat everybody with that." And all of a sudden, you wake up. I said, "You dang right, I woke up."
So George turned it into a high spot.
George did, and I've seen that snake like before Jake goes through the curtain. Sometimes I've seen it get excited with the crowd and start clamping down on his arm. And I've seen a lot of the boys run over there and try to get it off of him, but he would tell everybody to back up. Yeah. Like, you ain't getting this snake off of me till he wants to let go.
Yeah.
And, one time it got lost. Can you believe that, Jimmy? They lost Damien for a week on a plane.
Whoa.
So they deliver him to the building, the arena. Yeah. And so everybody's wanting to run over there. I mean, this chest that snake was in was literally bouncing up and down. I mean, this snake had been locked up for a week. Yeah. And everybody the handlers were running over, getting ready to open it. And Jake said, "Oh no, you better get back."
Yeah.
So Jake grabbed a broom, as crazy as it sounds, and we all stood behind that crate. And Jake reached up like with a broom. Now here's these 300-pound monster wrestlers, right? And we're all standing in the back, scared to death. And man, he flicked the latch on that crate, and that big old snake come out of there, and for about an hour, and nobody could get it. I mean, it just ran. It just ran into lockers. It knocked over chairs. It hadn't been out in a week.
Right.
But you know what calmed it down? I probably should try that. Jake would throw it in the shower and turn warm water on it.
Okay.
Can you believe that? So I used to tell Jake, "Now, Jake, we're getting ready to go to the ring, but I hope you keep that snake under that warm water till it's time to go through that curtain."
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
So it's kind of neat now with my grandbabies. They don't know much about wrestling, but I can show them Jake putting the snake on me. Now, the snake's over with my grandbabies, let me tell you. Yeah. So they think it's pretty cool that, I'm getting a snake put on me.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, "Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star?" Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Support for Live and in Color with Wolfie D is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code WOLFIE at manscaped.com. If my math's correct, that's about 8 million balls.
Real quick question. Recently there was the Dark Side of the Ring, and these shows have been going on, and they've had a really good one about Magnum,
Right.
and some other things. But the one I want to ask you about, and this kind of takes you back to the very beginning of your career in championship wrestling from Florida with Eddie Graham. Did you ever have any run-ins with Eddie at all? How was your and
man? I loved it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know what's funny is every time I do a podcast and people comment on it, they always say, "Well, it sounds like to me George loved everybody." Well, no, I met a lot of jerks in this business, but I love most of them.
Hold on, I met a jerk in wrestling? Never.
Man, can you believe that?
I don't believe
and but what I've learned early is I just go by how people treat me. You know?
Yeah.
And that's all you can go by. So you know who helped me so much, and I want to give him credit, is, see, and fans don't understand this. When you were a young wrestler back in the day and you was trying to get bookings, there was no freaking internet. There was no texting. There was no phone. There wasn't no cell phone.
Right.
So you sent out 8x10s. Like every now and then in a wrestling magazine, there'd be an address of a promotion. So you would mail out 8x10s to these promotions. And so all these years, man, I mailed out so many 8x10s with a little bio, and nobody ever answered. And then one day in Atlanta TV, I met Mike Jackson, who to this day I credit with helping me so much. Is Mike said, "How would you like to do TV for Bill Watts?" I said, "Wait a minute, you what?" He said, "Sure." He said, "Here's my number, just call me." So I'm thinking, okay, now I tried everything. Okay, I tried everything, and nobody would even nobody would even write me back and tell me to go jump in a lake. And then Mike Jackson said, "Just give me a call." So I called him, and he said, "I tell you what," he said, "it's perfect timing." He said, "Would you like to go on the road for a week with me?" I said, "Are you kidding? I'm ready right now." So in 1 week, he took me to Bill Watts. We went to Eddie Graham in Florida, and we finished up in Pensacola for the promotion down there with the Fullers and them. So in 1 week, I'm getting my tail kicked on TV, but I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
So I walk in, and Eddie Graham, the thing that I wish people would know about Eddie Graham, he was so accessible. Like I knew who he was from the magazines, and he feuded with Paul Jones in the magazines. And all of a sudden I walk in that famous sportatorium place that they called it in Florida, and for their TV, and here's Eddie Graham. And I walk in, he shakes my hand, and I'm just sitting. I mean, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there was, the Youngbloods, Jay Youngblood, and it was just what an array of talent. Dutch Mantell was even in and out down there. And the PYT Express was Coco Beware. I mean, it was just, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was go out there and work my butt off in the ring. And I'm going to tell you, and I know you've heard it, Wolfie, for years. Everybody said, "Well, I didn't call Mike Jackson because I had to give him a booking fee." And to fans that don't know, it's like, okay, I didn't, if I get you a booking, Wolfie, for $100, I'm going to take 25 of it. I didn't care. Like back then, I tried it all. So I told Mike Jackson before he ever said anything, I said, "Mike, listen, I don't care what they're going to pay me. You can take it all." Are you kidding me? I'm going to be on Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm going to be on Championship Wrestling from Florida. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'll pay you.
Let me ask you something real quick. And unless I just missed it, did you ever work Memphis?
You know what? Here's the funny thing about Memphis. I got a great Memphis story. So listen to this. So Dusty and Jim Crockett get a wild idea that they're going to run Memphis. Okay? They come to the Mid-South Coliseum, and they bring the heavy guns. I mean, we bring Magnum, the Road Warriors, rock and roll. And this place, we had a heck of a house where all of the lights are on. So Dusty gets mad because he wants that old school look. He wants the lights off, but the lights over the ring left on.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm standing there, and Dusty's talking to like the head custodian. And Dusty said, "Man, we're fixing to start this thing." He said, "It's almost bell time." He said, "I need all the lights off in this place, and the lights above the ring I need turned on." And that guy said, "Sorry, Mr. Rhodes, I can't do that." Dusty says, what do you mean? We paid rent. We got a heck of a crowd. It's what I want. And you know what that guy said, Wolfie? He said, I laughed. He said, no, sir, you don't understand. Those lights above the ring are not ours. They belong to Jerry Lawler. Dusty said, what? He said, oh, yes. He said, those are Jerry Lawler's lights, and we can't touch them. So we did that whole show. I mean, it was still a great time, but it was the awfulest look for TV and stuff because every light was on in the place because you couldn't touch those Jerry Lawler lights.
Yeah, that's
so I never, as far as going to do the TV tapings, I was always, busy down here, and I would have loved to, but I never. Boogie used to invite me to go up, but I never did. I never did. The closest I got was when we couldn't turn off Jerry Lawler's lights.
That's really good.
Listen, that's the power there, buddy. Okay.
That is. Yeah. Did you know that, Wolfie? That he owned?
No, I did not. I've never heard that story, but
that's so weird, man. So we left on every light in that Mid-South Coliseum.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I saw Jerry Lawler came down last year and did a show here for the AML in Winston-Salem, and I reminded him of that. Of course, he laughed. I said, yeah, man, you still made Dusty mad. I said, man, Dusty couldn't turn them lights off.
That is a rib and a half. Oh, man. That is so
whoa.
Yeah.
So he's got a stroke.
He always will have that. Yes. One thing, I've got to ask you about because, you were talking about work for AML and the local guys and stuff. One thing I've got to talk about right now is you've been seen pretty regularly on 2 shows that are very popular right now currently, especially on the up and coming levels, is that Billy Corgan's NWA and GCW, Game Changer Wrestling. So let me ask you, one question is, what's the culture like? And then second question is, do they even listen to you?
Yeah,
I'm gonna shut up.
You know what's so amazing, Wolfie, and this is not just now, but my whole career, and I'm so thankful to the Lord for this. Is I've always been blessed by having promoters or bookers, whatever you want to call them. They always reach out to me.
Yeah,
and I'm so thankful that I always tell people, you don't have to post a best of video on YouTube. If you know a little bit of what you're doing, they will find you. Yeah. They will, because good hands, as you know, Wolfie, and good talent, man, and good guys, and I hear guys that tell me that, man, once I meet you, George, you're nothing like what someone said, and I said, you think? How about asking me to myself? So. Right. It's funny because I tell people all the time, Wolfie, I say, listen, either I'm the greatest con man in the world after 42 years, or I may know what I'm talking about. And that kind of shuts everybody up. But when NWA reached out to me, what was so amazing is I knew that they tried to bring the NWA back, and all they want to do is me to come and try to work. I never met. I tell you what, Ricky Morton had to introduce me to Billy Corgan. Well, I mean, I hate to admit that, but I didn't even know who he was. I'm sitting there talking to him, and he's like telling me how much he loved Mid-Atlantic wrestling. And I'm, we're just getting along great. Finally, Mulkey walks up and says, you do know who this is, right? I said, well, I just think he's a good wrestling fan, a big fan.
Right.
He said, no, he's actually the guy that owns the company, and he leads singing, Smashing Pumpkins.
Right.
So we kind of laughed now that I know who he is. But you know what I love is, when first time I went to this NWA in Atlanta, they got all these agents. So all these agents start coming over to me with a rolled up sheet of paper. And I know they're just doing their job, but I'm thinking, guys, I told every one of them, I said, I've been doing this for a long time. And I said, I know my job. I know why I'm here. And I said, so what do y'all think you're going to tell me? And I didn't mean that rude. I just meant, guys, just let me go be me.
Yeah.
And it worked. And I worked Colby Carino, Steve Carino's boy. And we went out there, and man, it was just, they let me be me. I tell you what's a fun story. I've been waiting 42 years to step behind that NWA sacred desk that Gordon Soley and, Bob Cottle and all them guys.
Yes,
so all of a chance, I get a chance to stand behind this sacred desk, and I get to do a promo.
Yeah.
And I get emotional. When I think of the history there with those letters, I get emotional. Now, listen to this, Wolfie. So a lot of the young guys in the back start laughing. They start laughing at my promo.
Really?
Right? And so, like, you got to be kidding me. But I'm getting into the moment, man. I'm getting loud. I mean, I'm thinking, this took me 42 years to get here. I ain't never going to shut up.
Right. Right.
And so, later, and we got out there and we had the match, and I put Colby over 1, 2, 3 in the middle of that ring. And I wasn't going to have it no other way. I'm telling you, buddy, and I'm not being a jerk, but if they would have told me to go over, I wasn't going to.
Right.
Colby was this young, good-looking kid, and, man, he had really changed his life around. I remember we were doing some pre-tapes, and Colby's doing a promo, and he had just turned his life around, and man, he about died. Like, he OD'd and about died, but he came back, and he's turned his life around. When he starts crying in the promo, they stop the promo.
Wow.
Waiting on him to wipe his tears, and I about turned my head around. I mean, I said, you got to be kidding. Tape this.
Yeah, that's the
This
magic.
is like, bro, this is real life right here, man.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? And so I thought, man, I need to shut up. They probably ain't going to have me back. But, and then I get that famous call from GCW.
Yeah.
And I'd heard about them. I didn't know many of the guys, but they asked me, would I come and work for them? And I tell you, what I've always loved about my career is I love going to new places. Even if, a guy just did a book on me, Wolfie, and it's my record book. And there's over 15,000 matches that this guy has recorded of me.
Dang.
And when people buy one, they said, is there really like that many matches in there? And I say, yeah, and there's another 10,000 that I didn't want in there. I mean, everything ain't been smooth sailing for this old guy. So,
you know what, George? It's funny you say that because I used to ride with Frank Morrell quite a bit in Memphis, and we would try to sit there and figure out just so something to do. Try to figure out how many bumps he had taken in his life, and we would just say, okay, so 6 days a week times 52 weeks times this many years. You figure on a easy night, you probably took 10 bumps. You know what I'm saying? And we did the math, and we figured up how many millions of bumps he took.
Right? Can you imagine that?
I can't imagine.
And so when I walked in, you know what was most impressive when I walked in GCW? Is like I knew Brett, the promoter, and we'd talked on the phone a little bit, but those guys were so respectful of me. I mean, you don't make this stuff up. When there's no fans and there's no cameras and there's no lights, real.
Right.
And people can't, and Wolfie, when you've done it as long as we have, you can't work us. I tell people, my kids laugh when someone knocks on my door and tries to sell me a vacuum cleaner. I end up selling him a pitcher.
That's awesome.
Like, Jimmy, who you going to do? You going to work me? Get out of my yard. Okay.
A worker. Yeah.
No, my daughter said, listen, he came to sell you some vacuum cleaners and you sold him like 3 T-shirts.
Right.
I mean, so you ain't going to work me in a dressing room. So the minute I walk in, I know these guys are legit. And listen, I'm going to tell you, the most respectful guy, and a lot of people said, you got to be crazy, George, is I have never met Nick Gage. Now he's the man. I mean, I'm telling you right now, he's the man. And so, he came in and he had his bags and he hadn't even sit down yet. And I'm going to tell you something, Wolfie. Nobody's ever heard this, but he put everything down and he came right to me.
Yeah.
Okay. He came right to me, buddy. And man, I get goosebumps right now thinking about it, but he put all his bags down. He came right to me and he put his hand down and he said, it's an honor to meet you. He said, I want to thank you for everything you've done for this business. And see, right then, that's when the rubber meets the road, guys. You know if it's real or if it's fake. I mean, if he's just, shooting you a line of bull.
Yeah.
And so right then, I was in complete, thankfulness mode. And we just, I don't know, it just was amazing. And then, of course, last year at WrestleCade, it was unheard of as I do a promo where I challenge Nick Gage.
Yeah.
And people go freaking nuts. Let me tell you, I love the workers. I mean, the fans that think they're so smart. Let me tell you what I did real quick, Jimmy, and I'll shut up. Listen, so I do a match, and the sound guy knows how much I love the band Journey, right?
Yeah.
And so from old school days. So I'm leaving the ring. I got my hand raised. It's just a simple show. Well, as a rib, to me, the sound guy plays Journey, right? Like all of a sudden over those speakers, here comes Don't Stop Believing. I mean, it's like a hallmark moment. Well, let me tell you. Babies are crying, women are crying, and as I'm leaving the ring, you know, I'm acting a fool, but as I'm leaving the ring, I reach up and I put my hand on the turnbuckle pad that says AML, like I'm leaving. Okay? I've never said a word. I didn't do nothing. And listen to this. You talking about a goofball. Listen, Journey's playing, Wolfie, listen. I take my bandana that I wore for 40 years and I throw it back in the middle of the ring.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. I ain't said one thing about quitting.
Right.
Okay? Nothing.
Right.
30 minutes later, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, MySpace is blowing up. George South is leaving.
Yeah.
And Wolfie, I said, you got to be freaking kidding me. I said nothing. We just played a Journey song.
Right.
So for the next 6 months, people are sending me gifts.
Oh man, that's
now, Jimmy, listen, I ain't said one word yet, and I'm not going to because I'm getting all these gift cards in the mail.
Yeah.
Oh, George, it's been a great run. Okay, here, I'd like to show you my appreciation. I ain't said nothing. I'm not going anywhere. So I challenge Nick Gage. It's unheard of. Here, he's king of everything, the deathmatch king.
Right.
And here's George South.
Right.
Challenging him. And so I'm in a show, and it's starting to rain. And the guy said, George, where are you going to do this promo at? I said, let's just go outside and see if we can find a place. So we walk outside of this little American Legion building in the Carolinas, and behind it, Wolfie, listen, it was this rundown, burn-up building. I mean, it was just empty, and, I mean, it looked so ECW-ish back in the day.
Yeah.
So my camera guy's raining, it's getting wet, so I go in there, and I do this goofy promo where I challenge Nick Gage, and it looks like we went to Hollywood. But I just walked out the back door of this American Legion building and found this old building. So I challenge him. He accepts, and then it's on. And let me tell you something. That night, I never met him. We go to the ring, and I knew it was going to be, you know, pretty snug and pretty rough. But what was so beautiful about it is WrestleCade has been my home for 15 years. And I have, people have loved me, just the old school fans. Well, here comes this Nick Gage, and I've never seen people fall in love with somebody.
That's awesome.
Well, it was unbelievable. And so I go to the ring first, and next thing I know, I'm loving every moment of it because I'm turning heel, and people don't even realize I'm turning heel. Right? I did it 2 seconds before I go to the ring, and then they play his music. And let me tell you something, I've had a lot of matches and I still get goosebumps, but when he came through that curtain, man, you could feel the atmosphere. Wolfie, it's what me and you got in this business for. I mean, it was just, before we ever touched, I knew that it was going to be a special night. Yeah. And I knew my job. Again, let me just throw this in here. I knew my job that night. I knew who Nick Gage was. Yeah. I'm not going to be an idiot and think that I'm the new. People come up to me and say, "Hey, you're the king of the death match." I said, "No, I'm not. Shut up." You know?
Right.
I said, "No, I'm not." So I knew my job, and we went out there, and it was. Man, I'm very, very proud of it. And you know, it's been a year, and I still have people message me and tell me how much they enjoyed it, and it was just so. From that, is to answer your question, buddy, is. I'm going back up there for GCW in a few weeks to New York. And Nick Gage sent me a message. He sent me a message, and he said, I just want to tell you that it's such an honor to have you back at our company.
That's awesome.
Now, see, the fans don't understand that. These stupid young wrestlers don't understand that. Yeah. But that respect level, they can't ever take from me.
Right.
They can't ever take. I can be broke living under a bridge. Reading wrestling magazines, but they can't take that. Yeah. They can't take that away from me. So it's a whole new ball game for me. I'll tell you, and I'm gonna throw this in here real quick, Wolfie, and I'll shut up and let y'all ask me. You know, I've always loved giving out Bibles at a wrestling show. I mean, I know what the Bible means to me and how it changed my life. And I don't push it on anybody, but I love giving people Bibles, free Bibles. And what's so amazing about this world that we live in is people, first of all, they don't think anything's free. You know, they think there's a catch. And so I walk in GCW and I give out Bibles at my gimmick table. Now, a lot of the people gave them back, okay, because that's a hardcore crowd. But I didn't do it to prove a point. I did it because that's who George South is. Does that make sense, Wolfie?
It does.
Everywhere I go, buddy, everywhere I go, man, I'm telling you. And I joke with people. Because, there's this guy like on the internet that does what is that guy's tag? He's like the angry heel or whatever. And he just hates everybody and everything that happens. And I'm the complete opposite of that.
Right.
There is nobody that's did more jobs. There's nobody that has lost more than me in pro wrestling. But man, listen, I'm not that, and I am happy. And I mean, I just love that bit. I still love. You know what my deal is? Like today, after we finish this great podcast, I don't have a show to go to.
Yeah.
So I'm like drinking like 14 Mountain Dews, and I gotta come down off of this. Buddy, I'm looking for a wrestling show.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
I tell you, I have these young guys. I had a couple of guys this weekend, my students, that couldn't go to the show, and they've got girlfriends, and I understand all that mess, but I try to tell them, guys, listen, pro wrestling is my release from the world.
Right.
I mean, I know we all got stuff going on, but man, Lord, the world is the problem, not pro wrestling.
Right.
So, see, that's what I love about Ric Flair, Wolfie, is what he has in his heart. I don't care how old he is, what he's got in his heart, you can't teach.
Right.
You can't. And that's how I am. I mean, I love our business. Nobody can do, that earlier we were joking about the guy that called me old. And I'd like to see him try to do what we do. I'd like to see him just take a bump and entertain. And, Ivan Koloff used to tell me that, his body was beat up, not just from the matches, but from all the car rides, from town to town. And sure. Now they fly a lot, but man, and it's just, golly, it's what's funny. My trash man I done talked about everything, Wolfie, but my trash man, old fashioned guy.
Yeah.
He's on the back of that truck every day, and he's the happiest man in the world, and he loves wrestling. Yeah. So once a week he stops, they get my trash. He comes up, we start talking about wrestling. And he's such a fan of our business. There's so much respect. He's loved it since he was a kid. His kids love it. Yeah. And he's always telling me, because he sees stuff on the internet, he sees how, sometimes wrestling, they eat their own. I mean, it's like, the disrespect that they give me and you sometimes, and it just don't make sense. He said, man, Joe, listen. He said, I don't understand. He said, I've been a trash man for 30 years. Mm-hmm. He said, I got all these plaques hanging on my wall. He said, people love me because I've been a trash man for 30 years. He said, but in y'all's business, the longer you do it, the more fun they make of you, the more names they call you. And, I'm sitting here in my front yard thinking, this trash man's got a point. Wolfie. I mean, I'm listening to my trash man who sees it. It's like, any other sport, golf or bowling or football, the longer you've done it, the longer you've been in love with it, it's like, man, the more respect they give you.
Right.
But for some reason in our business, I get so angry sometimes when people that don't even know me tell me that I need to quit. I told people about Ric Flair's last match. I said, what do y'all think Rick should be doing? Working at Walmart?
Right.
I mean, let Rick get in that ring as many times as he wants to.
Amen.
So I just tell people, and I tell Tessa this every day, Tessa Blanchard, I said, the joy that you have inside of you, don't ever let anybody take that away from you.
Yeah.
And people say, that's caused this and that's caused that. And I said, no, listen, I'm serious. I have been lied to. I've had more bad checks wrote to me. I've had more payoff stink in our business. But I promise, I tell these young kids at our shows that tell me they got to leave early because they got to work in the morning. Yeah, right. Just shut up. If I do a battle royal, you're going to be here 10 more minutes. So be quiet. But I just let them leave. I thought, guys, you missing it. You're really missing what this business, is about.
Yeah.
And I don't beg them to stay as many times. My daughters, I got twin daughters, Wolfie, and they're 30 years old now, but every now and then they'll show me their little finger. And it's got a little old cut in it. And they said, you remember when we were 8 and you made us help you set that ring up in that field and you smushed my finger? And I said, okay, honey, I remember that. Okay. They ain't gonna let me forget that. So many times I've been there setting that ring up by myself, and I've loved every minute of it.
That's awesome, man. You were talking about the GCW guys, and I do want to put them over because at Ric Flair's last match, I was in the bunkhouse battle royal, and I wanted to get the hubcap in, before I got eliminated.
Yes.
And when Bubba Dudley, when he told it was me, him, and Sin were the producers or whatever. And when we told the group said, okay, so Wolfie wants to get the hubcap in, who wants to do it? Every single one of those GCW guys, I mean, shot their hands up in the air, shaking their hand like in school, like me. And I was like,
oh, I love that.
That's pretty cool, man.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Sandman at WrestleCade, we did a celebrity battle royal, and Sandman come up to me and he said, George, he said, there's 30 guys out there. He said, you're the only one I trust, and I'm going to let you throw me out. And I've never been so nervous in my life, right? I got Sandman. I'm getting ready to eliminate. But I laughed. He said, yeah, I don't know none of these other guys. He said, I'm going to let you throw me out. So I laughed. But I laid him out gentle, very gently.
Well, George, what do you got? We're getting low on time here. I want you to be sure you can plug everything. So what do you got coming up, man, that you want people to know about? Anything you want to plug?
Well, yes, sir. Thank y'all so much. I wrote my life story. My good friend Mark James, who wrote Dutch Mantell's book and several others years ago, he wrote my life story. And
great book.
Man, I tell you, it's still doing great. And they can all go to georgesouth.com. That's old school nowadays, but that's just my simple website. And I got a number on there for my wrestling school. We try to update it with the upcoming dates. November will be the huge WrestleCade event here in Winston-Salem that we've done for 15 years. Over 300 of the boys will be there. It's like 4 days, and GCW is actually going to be a big part of that. I got to work Great Muda there a couple of years ago. Yeah. But listen, hey, I ain't washed my face yet. Wolfie? Hey, well, I'm wearing that green paint till it wears off. Okay, that green mist.
Yes.
You say, man, wash your face. I said, let me explain to you who this, I'm in a restaurant. Let me explain to you where this green mist come from. Okay. Right. The Great Muda. Okay.
Right.
But man, what an honor, to do those little moments. I always call them God moments because you can't explain it no other way.
Right. Yeah.
Ric Flair wrote about me in his book, said I was his favorite guy to beat up. The WWE comes out with this encyclopedia, Jimmy. It's the biggest book I've ever seen in my life. It's bigger than your coffee table.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden on like page 300, there's a picture of George South.
Yeah.
Now listen, buddy, I ain't nothing but an old wrestling fan that still loves it. And for me to be able to hold on to that encyclopedia and give my kids and here's my last story, guys. I know we got to go, but the other night there's this young kid, right, in the dressing room, Wolfie, and you could tell he loves the Hardy Boys, right? He's got that look, and I look over and he's putting duct tape. Now listen to me, Jimmy. He's putting duct tape on his arms, like Jeff Hardy, right? So I go over there and I said, "Hey, brother," I said, I know you don't know me. I said, "But why don't you just cut up a sock?" I said, "It's probably going to be cheaper, for your sleeve, and it's probably going to hurt a lot less when you take it off."
Right.
And you know what he tells me? He said, "Oh no." He said, "If I cut up a sock and put it on my arm," he said, "everybody's going to think I'm a big mark." I said, "Brother, what do you think we all are?"
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You're standing here with 10 pounds of duct tape on your arms, and you don't think that's being a mark, but he just didn't get it.
Right.
If I love Jeff Hardy, and here's what I'm going to do, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. Every time I see one of the boys, like Magnum TA, I just told Magnum TA how much I loved him. And what I'm so proud of, and I've just done it all these years, is like Terry Taylor, I'm still in touch with those guys. I was able to tell Animal how much I loved him and thanked him. And, Dennis Condry, every day, I thank him because I tell them that they bought a lot of groceries for my family. And nobody understands that, Wolfie, but when midnight was against rock and roll, and we were selling out everywhere we went. George South was in the first match.
Yeah.
Okay, against Denny Brown or Joel Deaton or somebody like that. And so I got to partake of that table, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wolfie?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not in the main event, but I always appreciated what Dennis and Bobby and Steamboat, all those guys did for me. They helped me raise a family. Are you kidding me? And how in the world can, when the first guy that bought my life story, Jim, the first thing he said was, I loved it, but there was nothing dark in it. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I thought I'd read some good, dark stories.
Man.
I said, brother, you better go get another book because you ain't going to find it in mine.
Right.
Because there's so much good happened to me in professional wrestling. I've met so many great, Wolfie, I got to hold Wahoo McDaniel's hand a week before he died in a hospital. I mean, here's this chief, toughest man I ever met in my life. And oh my gosh, New York Jet linebacker, and to hold his hand. I mean, oh my gosh. People think I'm going to be sad.
Right.
No, some old guy called me old. I'm going to go to his house. I'm sorry, guy. Thank you, man. I didn't mean to keep running my mouth.
No. Hey, one more thing. We can't not bring this up because our old buddy Insane Shane, Mr. Shane Martin, he's got a George South action figure coming out soon.
Yes, he does.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process on that? We love
buddy,
Shane. He's a good buddy,
Oh, I love him so much. My whole life, I like I said, I've been on there's a wrestling ring that Hasbro sold with Ultimate Warrior clotheslining me on the front of it. You know what I'm saying? The Warrior knocked me out and then cussed me out because I couldn't get back up to take another one, But I'm on that toy box. So all them little gifts that have happened to me all these years but I've never had a wrestling figure. Yeah. And I don't care who you are in our business. It's cool to have one, especially if you're kids. And so Shane, I had never met him, man. He contacted me, and man, what a tremendous guy. And I'm not just saying that because he's working, he's just making a figure that looks like me. He's letting me have every detail on this thing.
Yeah.
And for example, real quick, he asked me about the Mid-Atlantic patch. There was an old Mid-Atlantic patch that was the logo of Mid-Atlantic Wrestling for years, and I've got it on my boots, and it's very small.
Yeah.
And he asked me the first day, he said, can you get us a good picture of that patch? And to me, that made me a friend for life, that he cared enough about that small patch that's going to be on this action figure of me, then I trust him. Yeah. And so, brother, I told him, man, I'm going to make sure that we outsell. All I'm going to do is outsell the Hardy Boy doll. Okay? Yeah. That's all I'm going to do.
Right.
No, I told him. And so we're excited. I mean, it's a long process.
Right.
And I'll keep everybody updated, on my website and Facebook. But man, to be able to see this thing, and then they're going to put my jacket, my old claw glove that Black Jack Mulligan gave me.
That's awesome.
I mean, people look at that and think I just cut an old glove up. I'm thinking, if you knew how much this glove was worth, you'd shut up. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what a special, and just for Shane to take time. That's what I'm trying to explain to everybody. Just for him to take time. He's got a family. He's busy, but for him to take time to bless me with this, I'm going to make sure that this thing does real good for him. So I appreciate you for mentioning that, buddy.
Of course. Can't wait I'm going to hold George South in my hands, y'all. So
you are, but hey, I tell my enemies, hey, just buy it as a voodoo doll.
Right. There you go.
I'll sell you the pin separate. Okay.
That's genius. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hey, I will sell one of that old guy that said I was old.
George, we really, really, really appreciate you coming on with us, man. Like I said, we've been talking about getting you on here for a while, and I'm glad it finally happened. It's an honor and a pleasure to listen to you talk. And Jimmy, look how good I did. I did not say one cuss word this entire time. And let me tell you, George, I did that just for you. I watched.
I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you so much.
A potty mouth sometimes, and
I about did when I got you on the phone telling you about that old guy that called me old. you had to tell me to not cuss, okay?
So man, hey, again, we really appreciate it. Everybody, go to George's website, check out his stuff, check out his merchandise, go to WrestleCade, wherever George is going to be. Super nice guy. And like I said, we appreciate you having you on here. Jimmy, after this, what are we coming back with?
We've got some Ask Wolfie D anything. Oh, Lord, George, just, keep us in your prayers, brother.
Yeah, that's right. As soon as we finish, I'm going to pray for you, okay?
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you both so much, man. I loved it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Have
George.
a good day, George.
Thank you both. Thank you guys so much.
Take care, buddy.
We'll be back.
DJ, hit the music. All right, we are back with Ask Wolfie D Anything. And again, how cool is George? Seriously.
Super cool. I don't think we could put him over enough, man. We really appreciate him coming on. Like we said earlier, man, just cool. What a great conversation. And you were right. The hair story was good. That's smart.
I mean, it is, dude. Making money, the best money you can. And he noticed that, hey, I can grow hair,
All right, Carney at its finest, right there.
It is truly that, yeah. The funny story about you talking to him about taking off his jacket and just milking it, that is a lost art, kids. Yeah, seriously.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
Like I said earlier, when I saw him doing it, I was just like, okay, this guy definitely gets it. Now I understand why he's had the career that he's had, because he didn't have to do nothing, and you had him in the palm of their hands. So.
What is that? See, I've heard you say it. I've heard other people say it, to where you're getting heat without a bump. You're basically, you don't have to take a bump to get heat, and the crowd's probably wanting to kill him. And so good.
We used to call it Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Nobody uses that word that much anymore, but that's part of Shakespeare right there.
That's a great term, too. I love that. It makes so much sense, actually. So, yeah. All right. Well, we got some Ask Wolfie D Anything. And the very first one, I want to get out of the way here real quick. Again, this is James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I want to ask you a question, Wolfie. Can you tell the story? Who trained you?
Yes. So we'll go over this again. There seems to be some discrepancies here, and I think some people feel slighted that I tell the story the way I do. But I'm gonna put it all out there like I always do, man. So at 15 years old, I find out that Rick Reynolds, RICKREYNOLDS, Rick Reynolds, the Medic Damien. Did I say his name enough?
Forsaken, too.
Forsaken. He was a friend of, I've known the dude since I was like 8 years old, man. And, him and my stepdad I found out they were going to train with Gypsy Joe.
Yeah.
And I literally cried to my stepfather to take me with him, because he didn't want to take me. Him and Rick were adamant about, no, not until you graduate school. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, that's probably going to be never. Not that I did good grades, but I just, some people, school's not for them sometimes. But anyway, I have a GED, by the way. So anyway, they take me, and Rick had showed me some stuff in the apartment and things like that. And he was, kind of the one that, like, he got me in the door more than Pete did. Okay.
Yeah.
So they take me to the barn that I've always talked about out in West Nashville, with the carpet and the stink and the nastiness. And Gypsy Joe was in the ring training Pete and Rick, working out with them, whatever you want to call it. And that was my first time in a ring, and Joe was the instructor. So without being, and man, I love Rick to death. And I know that he feels like, when people ask me this question, why do I not say he trained me? Because as I got along in the business further and further, I realized, hey, if you're still being trained by somebody, how can Joe was the one showing me the stuff in the ring and telling me what to do, showing me flying head scissors, and everything I would do, I would get it pretty much just like that. Catch on quick. So I didn't spend months in the ring with Gypsy. I didn't spend months in the ring with Rick. There was a few times where we all went and whatnot. And, like I said, Rick showed me stuff on the side, but a lot of my training was hands-on. They put me in the ring and I just started learning by working with the people I was working with. Yeah. And got some lucky breaks, and by God, I got some breaks that I deserved. And I think I earned every bit of it. But, to say, and I always put Rick over, so I'm not sure why he feels so slighted about it. But to me, if Gypsy Joe, who had been in the business forever and a day at that point even, is running a workout session, a class, whatever, with my stepdad and him, and I joined in, and he's basically Joe's telling everybody what to do, how can I not say that Joe trained me? How can I not say that? I can say that Rick helped get me in the door, and I can say that he helped show me stuff. But as far as the first wrestler, with a name that was in the ring with me was Gypsy Joe. So again, me and you've talked about this privately. It seems to be, we were talking about this earlier too, like people wanting to come on the show and your show or this show. And I don't want anybody out there to feel slighted or that I think I'm better than anybody or stuff like that. Me and you do this because we like wrestling. Right. And I like to talk about wrestling and some of the stories and things like that. But at the same time, there's people that have run shows, and because I had made it to the USWA and then on to the national, level and all that stuff, didn't want to book me anymore because I started out with them and they felt like they should pay me the same thing they did as when I started. No, that's not. It's a business. It's an absolute business. I learned that early on. And as far as the podcast goes, I'm going to need you to be somebody that I think is going to get us some numbers. And same for you. So I don't want anybody to get their feelings hurt. I love all these guys, man. Or I thought I did. I thought they liked me too. I feel like I'm getting a little heat over it, but it is what it is, man. And it won't be the first time somebody, had heat with me or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. And I love Rick Reynolds. He was good to my family. I love all these guys that have been on your shows. There's not anybody that I can think of that I go, God, he's a prick. I don't want him on my show. Sure. It's just, we're trying to do something here. And if I feel like you're going to help me, I'll bring you on here. And we've kind of made it where yours was kind of a testing ground to see how good some of that was going to do. And, then we brought the Wild Boys on here and they did good. So, it's not to say that we're trying to be, I'm not trying to big time anybody, but, whatever. It is what it is. I've been in the wrestling business over 30 years, and it's not the first time that's happened to me. So whatever. Well, okay. So just to kind of beat the dead horse here, just real quick. Mm-hmm. Now, some people in training, let's say like somebody who trained under Harley Race or somebody, and then they've got their guy that's in the ring and Harley's by the apron. You, to just clear all this up, you and Joe actually touched though, right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there were times that you were in the ring with Joe and you're actually touching and literally he's showing you, Wolfie, you do this, and now you probably did that also with Rick. You also did that with probably your stepdad too, but also at the same time, you were actually touching Joe and okay. I just, I don't want to leave anything unsaid and misunderstood, so. And if anybody's got their feelings hurt over that, I apologize. It's just a story. That's my story, and that's the way I see my story. Especially, like I said, getting later on in the business, figuring out, okay, you can't really call it that, if you yourself are not really finished with training, So, I don't know. Sorry, I love you, Rick. Devil's advocate. Rick loves you too. I'm sorry, literal devil's advocate because he was one of the devils. But devil's advocate also, I'll say this. My side of things, I've heard you mention Rick many times and give him credit for your training. So for sure, Hell, I put him on my documentary. Yeah. Oh, there you go. I'm not sure how it was edited, but he was definitely interviewed for it. So if I didn't think that highly of him, I definitely wouldn't have had him on my documentary. So yeah. Well, Rick's coming up on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, July 6th. Segue. Rick's a great guy. We had a great interview. It's going to be a lot of fun. But
that I think answers that. I just kind of wanted to ask that question and let you have your ultimate say on that. So anytime you ever need to wonder who trained Wolfie D and how it happened, you heard it from the horse's mouth right there. So, okay. Our very next question, this one's interesting because I've actually never heard this. Man, you may have even brought it up on the show, but I don't remember it because I've literally edited every bit of this. But so listener Ben Martin on Facebook, always one of my guys, come through with great questions. He actually is studying the year of 1995, 1996 USWA. So he probably knows everything as good as anybody right now. And so he was curious if Wolfie D would tell the story about he and or Randy Hales losing Double J's cowboy hat while you were going to a town. Have you heard that?
I didn't lose it. I made sure it didn't get lost.
Okay.
So what had happened was, we had all went out and Jeff had his hat box. It was blue, cowboy hat box, looked like a little dome sort of thing. Yeah. And it in Randy's car, and let's just say I left the establishment that we were at and had an accident, and I wrecked Randy's brand new 95 Cadillac, and I knew I couldn't sit by and wait for the police to come on that one. So to keep Jeff out of trouble, basically, without identifying, if they would have opened that up and saw it, they would have known, because it was in Memphis, and they would have been, oh, that's Double J's hat. So I had the wherewithal, the brains about me, I guess, to grab that hat box and take it with me. And I went from one side of Memphis to the other. It took me hours. No one would pick me up. I mean, it was the middle of the night, and I didn't get back to the hotel that we were at until daylight. And somebody actually, I'm serious, it was like a mile or two from the exit I was going to. Somebody finally picked me up, and I'm telling you, I walked hours, bro. And if anybody knows Memphis and knows how big the loop is, 240, something like that, I can't remember, but it's a long ways. Wow. So, so I grabbed his hat, and then I got back to the hotel and told him what happened, and me and Randy went back over there, and right when we got there, there was an officer there, and I don't remember what Randy told him, but nothing happened. So, but I'm sure that Jeff didn't get in trouble.
I can imagine. So you've got his hat and you're carrying it across Memphis.
Yeah, sure did.
Anything else with you or just the hat?
Just the hat.
Wow.
There was no bags in the car or anything like that. Those were at the hotel room. For whatever reason, he had left his hat box in the back seat.
Man, and so is this the WWE hat? This is the
one with the two red J's on it.
Oh my gosh, bro! Oh, dude, you need that hat. I think you deserve that hat. Not God knows where it is, probably in Hendersonville somewhere, but you deserve the Double J hat, dude. Oh man.
That's why I got a job in TNA. I don't know.
Oh, maybe so. Hey, so that walk was worth it. And by the way, you were probably in better shape, to walk as far as your injuries that you have currently.
Yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't as bad, but yeah. Anyway, well, that's a great question, Ben. Thank you so much. I like Ben so much. He asked another one here. So Ben Martin from Facebook, once again, part of the intelligentsia. Yes, I might have made that up. But anyway, he said, I'm watching 1996 USWA and have just started running shows at the Big One Expo Center. Okay. Mm-hmm. He says, what were Wolfie's thoughts on the venue? And was it a glorified flea market, as Lawler called it?
Pretty much. We all, nobody wanted to leave the Coliseum and go to that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it hurt Memphis. It was the beginning of the end, really.
Yeah.
You take the Coliseum out of it, it's like taking Lance out of it. It's like taking Lawler out of it. It's like it's kind of part of the deal, the nostalgia and the history there. So yeah, nobody really liked it. And I really don't know how else to say that other than we all knew. This kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
So when you were in Nashville, it was at the fairgrounds. Would you compare this to the fairgrounds, or was it not even that?
Oh, hell no. It was bigger, but it was like the area that was not used was a whole lot of area. So it was flat.
Gotcha.
There was no risers or anything like that. And just the atmosphere wasn't the same,
Yeah. It's totally,
the Nashville Fairgrounds, the building that got tore down, the sports arena, had one of the best atmospheres to me ever. And, especially when it was packed out back in the day. But nah, man, the big one, it was what it was. And it wasn't that glorifying.
Yeah, literally, I just can imagine Lawler saying that. So that's pretty hilarious, Yeah. But yeah, so like it's like taking the WWE out of Madison Square Garden, Yeah.
I think that was if I remember correctly, I think that was a Larry Burton thing. I'm pretty sure he was there at that point, and that was
gotcha
with him.
Cost cutting measure, maybe, or
possibly.
Yeah. Well,
somebody like Randy obviously would know better than I on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that question, Ben, as always. And thank you, Wolfie, for that awesome answer. The Double J hat box is by far that's a great story, man. But anyway, well, that's all I got for Ask Wolfie D Anything. So take it over, Wolfie D.
Well, again, thank you, everybody. And like I said, I hope there's no hard feelings with some of these folks out there, wrestler-wise, promoter-wise, whatever, man. We're just doing our thing over here.
Yeah.
And, I like everybody. No, I don't. I don't like everybody, but most
a lot of people. You do.
I do like.
We did have a blast with the Wild Boys, man. That was a great episode. We had a lot of fun. Absolutely. Ben and Steve, definitely. If you haven't listened to that, and I don't know why, but go back and listen to that for sure, because excellent episode. And about 2,000 more of y'all go listen to Kevin Lawler so we can get him up near Jamie.
Wow.
Anyway,
fuck it.
Yeah.
Jamie and Kevin would be our best episodes, listener-wise. The amount of time, too. Jamie's had a little bit of extra time to get on there and saturate. So
Sure. But the sons of the two, man, it's crazy to think about, Bill and Jerry, Jamie and Kevin. It's awesome. Obviously we would have had Brian a million times over had he not passed, but long story short, man, it's cool to see that, so maybe we are the preeminent Memphis podcast. Who knows?
Could be.
Who knows?
Kind of sounds like it. But yeah, we appreciate y'all once again listening. And sometimes we give you a sneak peek, but I have no sneak peeks for next week. So I've got to figure that out. Jimmy and I will probably hang up here in a minute and talk about it. So we'll see if we can get somebody on here that don't hurt anybody's feelings. I'm such a jerk. All right, guys, tune in next week, please, and don't hate me. Love all y'all, and we'll talk to you next week on Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you are interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAMtheman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
If you're a fan of rock music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
This is The Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Mike Jablonski's Pissed Off YouTube channel.
The what's wrong in this sport? He's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think. You're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. He's pissed off.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at Warren Wolf 13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for you, don't.
He got a cap for you, don't.
I got a cap for you, don't.
He got a cap for you, don't.
You don't.
He got a cap for you, don't.
And here we go. The original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth. Still livin' in color, from rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hop. Been doing it like this since '92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. Huh. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.